But nevertheless, there is a further suspicion about human rights, perhaps an even more fundamental one, because there are some terrible stories in the Bible in which God is depicted as behaving in ways worse than the worst human tyrant, destroying whole peoples without a care for the innocent. And of course, the modern breed of new atheists really go to town on this. I mean, they emphasize time and again what a terrible tyrant there is in the Old Testament. Certainly there is that strand there. You can't deny it. And it's put at its most succinct in an analogy of St. Paul, in which he compares human beings to clay in the hands of a potter. St. Paul writes in his letter to the Romans, "You'll say, then why does God find fault if no one can resist his will? Who do you think you are to answer God back? Can the pot say to the potter, 'Why did you make me like this?' Surely the potter can do what he likes with the clay. Is he not free to make two vessels out of the same lump, one to be treasured, the other for common use?" But the fact is, of course, we're not lumps of clay. We are clay that has been breathed into and given minds and spirits. We can answer back. It's only tyrants who kill people for so doing. And I don't believe in the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ is like this. God has indeed made us, but that does not mean, I would suggest, that, as Paul seems to convey, that he can do just what he likes with us. Now, it's well known that when Winston Churchill had his portrait painted by Graham Sutherland, he so disliked the result that he destroyed it. And no doubt he took the view that because the portrait had been commissioned and given to him, he owned it and he could do what he liked with it. But suppose it was not a new portrait of him, but of one of his ancestors, say painted by Titian, for which he always had an obsessive hatred and which he destroyed. Was he really right to think that just because he owned it, he could do what he liked with it? Many would say that the painting was of great value, not just monetary value, and he had no right to destroy it. Ownership does not give that right. And of course, so today we have very strict planning laws about what people may or may not do on their own property with their own property, particularly if it is a heritage is involved, and we put preservation orders on trees and so on. So ownership in human terms does not confer an absolute right. So it seems to me that because God has created us, it does not put us in the position of being clay to him being a pot. What I'd like to suggest is, in fact, God creates us in his own image, and he recognizes and respects the worth of what he has created. We are of unique worth in the eyes of God, and this is not just because God happens to regard us as worth. The fact that he's created us in his image has bestowed on us that worth, which he then recognizes. We know from the New Testament of such worth that he goes to extreme lengths in Jesus in order to enable us to grow into the full potential that we have within us. There's a wonderful phrase in the letter to the Ephesians 2:10, which says that we are God's poema, is the Greek word. Old translations put that as God's workmanship, but I very much prefer a modern translation which says that we are God's work of art. God's poema, we are God's work of art. And having created us as this wonderful, valuable work of God, God recognizes and rejoices in the worth of what he has created.